And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, Interim General Manager at WEIU TV and Radio. My co-host is Mr. Daniel Jones.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Better known as DJ, the DJ sometimes, in his last semester here. Our guest is making another, I don't know how many times you've been here, Carolyn Cloyd, Executive Director of the Coles County United Way.
Well, thank you for having me. Hello.
Good to see you again. Or actually, I guess it's officially the United Way of Coles County,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
So we're all officially correct there.
Yes.
Well, welcome and thanks for coming in on not a bad-looking Monday, as we had a great Saturday and then not so good yesterday, so the weather wasn't too bad. I guess what I want to talk about is I was going through your website this morning. I know you. I've always known that you funded a lot of different things, but I think I counted on your front page there like 21 different places that you fund, and I'm guessing that's probably not all.
Actually, we fund 30.
30, okay.
We have been. I mean, it does fluctuate because we ask for applications every year for funding, and we go through that. So we do fund a lot of organizations and programs. We're funding the programs within the organizations is what we're doing.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about like how the United Way, works like that? Just give us some nuts and bolts behind the scenes of how the United Way, kind of operates daily.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm the only staff. Everybody else is a volunteer, and we have a great board of directors, and we have a great bunch of volunteers. And every year we ask for funding applications. And so any nonprofit in Coles County, because we are a Coles County agency, they can apply for funding. And we just ask them basic information. What is it you want funded? So they give us information about the program, a budget, what they think it would cost, what it would do, and just all sorts of basic information. If they're charging their clients, most do not. Where else they're getting funding from, so that we can just take a look at their overall organization. We get financial information, and we work with these agencies all throughout the year, and a lot of them you would recognize anyway. You've had here, I'm sure. It's the food pantries, it's HOPE, it's the Children's Advocacy Center. A lot of agencies people are familiar with, so we're pretty familiar with what they're doing anyway. And then they'll just, for example, the food pantries, all the food pantries do apply to us, and for just exactly what you would think that they would, to put food on their shelves. Some are a little bit more specific. We have funded, for example, in the past for a number of years, there's the Charleston Transitional Facility that's located in Charleston. It's just CTF of Illinois now. But we have, at one time we had funded, they just asked for $3,000 for a gardening program, for gardening therapy for their clients.
Yeah.
For several years we have funded they have an art gallery. And so we have funded that. They asked for $3,000 for that as well. So we have funded their art gallery and their supplies and that type of thing for their art therapy. Now there's other agencies. For example, we fund a agency or an organization called the Children's Assistance Fund, and it just happens to be located in Mattoon, in the Mattoon schools, and it's run by the social workers. And so any need that a child in the school system or even their family might have, we provide all of the funding for that organization. And it's funded. They've had children that have come in. Their families need food. Their families, they come to town and maybe they don't have any furniture or anything. Now that kind of thing, I will just say, we try to network with that. They'll contact us and say, hey, we've got a family has come to town. They don't have any beds. We'll just send the word out. And it's a very generous community. I'm sure you know that. Very generous community. And never have I ever put a call out like that somebody hasn't said, I've got 2 beds, I'll take them now. So
Sweet.
We try to do that. But, if the children need anything, school supplies or something in their home, it helps. So, we do fund a lot of agencies and a lot of programs we provide funding. And we just network with these agencies. It helps, too. Another thing I would like to point out, an agency such as HOPE, which is the domestic violence organization, they get VOCA funds, which are for victims of crimes, and they have to match locally funds. So another thing United Way funds do for an agency like that is we help them match those funds, because they have to match those to get the VOCA funds. So
that makes sense.
Is there a timeline of where people can apply for funding?
Yes, like right now, we're actually open for applications for our next funding. Our years start October 1st and run through September 30th. So we're taking applications right now for the next funding year, which will be obviously starting October 1st of this year. We're currently already funding agencies, and then our application process will work for the next funding year. So
I guess the obvious question is that you fund people, but how are you funded then? Talk about how you get your money and the things you do.
Purely just by going out and fundraising in the community. And, we have a lot of, United Way is very well established. I always say, this is my little United Way joke, if you will, but United Way began in Denver in 1887. There was a rabbi, a socialite, and a priest, and they...
Walked into a bar.
Yeah. Basically, they had the same issue that every community has today. They had a lot of needs. They had a lot of people coming into businesses or going into the churches and saying, hey, we have people who are hungry, people who don't have homes, people who don't have clothing, all the same things we're seeing today. And it was very difficult because, as you know, if somebody comes in and says, hey, we've got 10 people who are hungry, you're going to give money for that. And then somebody comes in and says, oh, we need housing. You're like, oh, I just gave that money. Yeah. So anyway, it was just a way to create a community fund so that the community could respond to all of the needs in the community in one fundraising effort. And then the really good thing, I think, is that the United Way organizations, although there is a global United Way organization, we are local. I mean, we simply are affiliated with the global organization because we get branding, we pay to use the branding information, or branding, the brand name and the United Way name. But we are local. What we do here is local. It doesn't matter what they do in Decatur or in New York or in Chicago. What we do here is what our volunteers and the people that live here say, this is a need and we need to fund this. So we might be funding something somebody else might not be doing.
Makes sense. Then I guess do the people have to they reapply every year, even though they become your quote unquote almost forever customers?
Yes. So. Yes. I mean, we always tell them there's no guarantee.
It all depends on how much money you've raised as well.
Yes, and I will say this year what we did do is we didn't fund some of the agencies we normally do, because this year we were focusing on COVID. People were so hard hit with COVID, what we wanted to do was focus more on the organizations that were dealing with housing and food and the things that were really hit by these people losing jobs and not having money. So, we told them, I will just say, it was a lot of the sporting organizations that we did not fund. We fund some sporting organization. We love sports. It's not. When I say this, please take it with how I intend it. We love sports, but we're not just out funding sports. I mean, that's for other people to do. What we do is we provide money for organizations, generally that help kids that might not be able to participate, because we do feel that sports do have value to children in a lot of ways, but
and to be honest, there wasn't a lot, and some sports got canceled.
Well, and that's just it. A lot of the programs, I'll say, like Mattoon Recreation Association, they weren't able to do their programs last year, and we had funded them, so they still have that money in the bank, and they can use it this year, and then they can reapply. But not that sports weren't still important, but they weren't going on last year, and when you're hungry, really that's more of a priority. Obviously, that just makes common sense than it is having your kids sign up for T-ball. So
I don't think you have to defend that.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I think you're good. At least me, I think Daniel and I would both agree that hunger is better than getting a pair of tennis shoes or a glove.
And so that's where our focus was. We really wanted the money to go there where those needs were, and hopefully everything goes back to normal and we can start funding like we were before. So,
Daniel.
Other than fundraising, is there any other ways you take, let me rephrase it, do you take donations as well as fundraising?
Well, we do. Let me say, I do as a United Way staffer, if you will. I get a lot of people call and I guess kind of look to us as trying to help them find places to volunteer or places to take donations. So I will take a lot of donations. For example, we just got a lot of clothing donations from somebody. But where I was going to, I can kind of target them where I know they need to go. There are a lot of children in the DCFS system that work with our partner agencies like CASA and the Children's Advocacy Center, that these kids obviously need clothing, even though they're going into foster care or whatever. They still might need some clothing or other items that people might donate. But a lot of times what happens, this is what I try to focus on, when you say to people, hey, there's kids that need clothing, a lot of people come in with the cute little dresses and the little socks, and there are a lot of kids that are adult size, and those kind of get overlooked because people don't think about buying adult size clothes for kids. They're thinking of kids. So, just for example, recently I got a lot of clothing donations from an individual. He said, hey, what can I do with these? I was like, bring them to me. I'll find something to do with them. And we did do that. Somebody brought in, they had a bunch of sporting items. Baseball, I had a bucket of baseballs, some bats. And he said, do you know of anybody that can use that? And I said, let me call Hope, because they do children's programs and they have children after school. And I said, let me see if they can use them. They snapped them up. They were like, yes. There was a badminton set, and they were really excited about that. So, So, yeah, I mean, we do things like that, but we also connect people. People will call us all the time and say, hey, I want to volunteer. Where can I volunteer? And we network with that. So.
And where do you send somebody, like a volunteer? Give us an example or two of, like, DJ walks in today and says, I want to volunteer. You got to send him to, like, the Haven, or what's going on?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would ask you if you had a preference. What do you have anything in particular you want to do? And most people generally say, well, I don't care. So then I will tell you that I know of some agencies that particularly need volunteers all the time. The Haven, Catholic Charities. This may not sound fun, but Catholic Charities, as you can imagine, they get so much stuff all the time that they just can't even sort through it. And that's why they end up closing their donation bins, because they just can't even get through it all. And they don't have enough people to come in and just sort through every single thing needs to be sorted through. So they always can use volunteers. When people want to volunteer as groups, that's a great place to send them. But the food pantries quite frequently need food packed. The ones that are tricky, of course, are the ones that deal with children. You can't just send people in to, volunteer with children. They have to be background checked and that kind of thing. But I just generally try to, if somebody says specifically, I want to work in a food pantry, I'll send them, this food pantry needs assistance. So
you touched on COVID a little bit, but did COVID affect any of the fundraising that you did last year?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, talk about that.
This has been probably the most challenging year. United Way's traditionally have always done a workplace campaign. We go into businesses, we drop off packets, we go in and we talk to people, and of course businesses were closed, or at least closed to people coming in, so we couldn't do that. So it has been a real challenge, and our campaign is really still kind of ongoing right now. So if anyone would like to donate, because it is just stretched out, we weren't able to get out there and do what we normally do. So it's just been a little bit of a challenge, a lot of a challenge, let me say.
Okay.
Does United Way have a working relationship with Eastern? And if so, what do you guys partner on?
Just like in the way that we will, let me talk about fundraising first of all, if I can. We cannot fundraise on the Eastern campus because the employees here are employees of the state of Illinois, and so there's something called SECA, which we have to follow SECA rules. So this was, when I first started working at United Way, I'm like, what is this SECA? And because they were like, you can't go on campus and you can't, it wasn't you guys, it was SECA saying you can't do this. And I'm like, well, who are these SECA people? And so, I mean, they're just very particular about how that is done. So, but, there's some Eastern people, the people that do the United Way campaign, that they will still allow us to just maybe like come on campus and set up a table, and if somebody wants to come and talk to us, they can, so that we can get the word out, and just overall, just kind of like, I don't know if Jeff would call this networking, but just getting involved in stuff and coming on campus and
Makes
kind
sense.
of making ourselves known.
Have you ever had, I know you don't say the name if it has happened, have you ever had, an organization that you gave to for 2 or 3 years, but you really saw them kind of, I won't say decline or not do the proper paperwork, and yet it's like, tell them, hey, we can't fund you this year? I mean, has there ever been an instance where you had to say no to somebody like that?
Yes. Overall, I do want to say I did see one decline, and it was not because they weren't doing anything right. It was the lady who ran it was getting older, and she ended up going in a nursing home. So unfortunately, her organization closed. But we did kind of see that declining. But there was one. They do great work. I'm not going to say their name, but they do great work. And they still do great work, but what they had asked us to fund, there was just a lot of confusion about what was happening, and the people that were administering it, it was just like we'd ask them, well, we want to come in and see what it is you're doing, and, people are calling and saying this is happening, so they were just like, okay, well, never mind, we won't ask for funding for that. It was a particular program within their large program, and they do great work, so.
Okay, I just wondered if how that was. We like to find out the little stuff.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I talk to a lot of people in lots of areas that say, we're talking about our partner agencies, and a lot of places they're very competitive for dollars. I mean, we are here somewhat, but not in a really actively give me those dollars. We all work together here is the great thing, because everybody has the same end goal here. And that is to make this particular person or these groups of people or whatever need there is, make sure that it gets done. But in some areas, when we were talking about partner agencies, they're like, wow, you have a great partner network there, that theirs are all adversarial and very competitive. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Now, do you prioritize like children first, if it's like in terms of things, or is it just all even when you look at the applicants?
Well, we kind of prioritize, if you will, food, obviously, hunger, homelessness, and abuse.
Okay.
So abuse. We deal with several agencies that deal with a lot of different kinds of abuse: senior abuse, child abuse, and sexual abuse. So.
The hunger thing is the one that's been fascinating to me, and we've had the Gillespies on a lot over the past couple of years. I think they're coming on again in May about the food insecurity and stuff that I'd never really thought about here in Coles County, about how people don't know where they're getting their next meal, and the percentage is not just like 5%; it's like 30 or 40% on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Don't know where they're getting the old meal. So I just find that fascinating. Do you have any thoughts on that, on food insecurity?
I do, and if I can touch on COVID again a little too while I'm doing that. We were very lucky. United Way of Illinois and the Illinois Coalition of Community Trust, along with Penny Pritzker, who's the sister of Governor Pritzker, put together these COVID relief funds last year, and we were also very lucky. They did two. One was for the Chicago area, and one was for outside the Chicago area. And the only reason I say that is people in need anywhere are people in need, and we care about them. But a lot of funding always, if it's for the whole state of Illinois, goes to Chicago, and we don't see it in outside Illinois. But in this particular case, they had a fund specifically for Chicago and one for outside Illinois. So we were very lucky to get some of those funds. So the first round, we got $275,000, actually for a 7-county area, which we helped disperse. And then they were going to give out, they had 5 different installments, and they had different criteria. The very last one being they wanted to help provide funding for organizations like schools needing to suddenly become virtual teachers and helping that infrastructure. But the fourth round, some of those same counties that got funding the first time that we did got some more, and we did not. So anyway, I was like, oh, what's going on here? I mean, it's unfortunate, but we have the highest poverty rate one of the highest poverty rates in the state of Illinois. And I'm like, if they call, anyway, long story short, so I went back to the committee and I said, hey, what about this? And we got $50,000 more for just Coles County. So we were extraordinarily lucky, but this is what I wanted to tie into the need for food. For that brief moment, and I want to be clear on that, I will clarify, I'm not saying our food pantries ever have enough, ever, except for during those months during COVID, the initial months during COVID, and we were constantly in contact because when we were disseminating these funds, we were saying, where are our needs? And hunger, homelessness, those were our main focus at the time. Our food pantries had enough for one brief shining moment. Not always, I'm not saying they do today, but for a brief shining moment, because there were a lot of federal funds being given to the food pantries. There were a lot of individuals and companies making monetary and donations and items, donating food. And people were getting, of course, started getting the maximum amount of SNAP, what's used to be food stamps, but SNAP. So for a brief moment, the food pantry said, we're okay, let's focus on housing. So we were so blessed in that. I know a lot of other areas were not. I know a lot of other areas were really hurting, but our food pantries were okay for a brief moment. So, and that is purely due to the generosity of people and organizations.
Cool.
So.
Okay.
Looking on the website, there is a section for diversity and inclusion. Can you elaborate on how United Way incorporates that into its operations, specifically in Coles County?
Well, for one thing, right now, I will have to say, actually having, how do I say this? We don't discriminate. So the funding that we give goes to agencies. Of course, we do ask them, tell them that there can be no discrimination. But we provide funding for any need in the community. It doesn't matter, at all who the person is. So that's just kind of part of what we do. What we're doing this year, though, is we are, right now, we're taking part in an equity challenge, a 21-week equity challenge. And we received a grant from Healing Illinois to do some equity work here in the community. And we're funding, and part of it was to promote our equity challenge, and then the other part was to fund some agencies doing equity work. So we're working with a great organization. I hope they're okay if I say their name because they're new and they're really just announcing that they're in doing this work. But it is called the Reality Project, and they're working to it's with Tanea Higginbotham. If you're familiar with her, she was the executive director for Camp New Hope until recently. I think she's focusing on this work. But she wants to, what they're doing right now is they're out in this community listening to people. What they want to do is facilitate conversations where people feel safe to say, this is my issue, or this is what I think, or I don't understand this, where everyone can talk and feel safe about talking about that. So we were extraordinarily lucky to get this grant to be able to help with that work, and that's what we're doing right now. So.
All right. The other thing you want to touch base on, as we have about 5 minutes left with Carolyn Cloyd today, is Run for the Fallen is another big thing that you always put on, or help put on. So talk about Run for the Fallen.
So last year, with the pandemic, we really were not sure what we were going to do, and we knew pretty quickly. We always hold it usually at the Charleston High School at the track. And so all of Charleston events were canceled. So we're like, well, we can't try and move forward with a live event if there's no other events going on. So we took it virtual, and we really just did not know how people would respond to that. And it was extraordinary. It really was. Everything was just done. You went online. We brought up a website, and we put every single picture and a bio of every single person who is from Illinois who has died in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And you could just go on there and pick someone and run for that person, have the information about them. So we had 665 miles completed. So it was remarkable. It really was.
Good thing they didn't make one more mile.
Yes. I'd have gone out and run another mile.
Yeah,
we would never end at that number, no. But so right now we're contemplating what happens this year. Do we still try it again virtually? Do we try a live event?
Is it a fall event usually or spring? I'm forgetting.
It's usually the third Saturday in August.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a national initiative. So
I think, knock on wood, you'll be able to do it at Charleston High School this fall, or this late summer, I guess officially that would be.
We're hoping so.
Any more questions over there, my man?
I believe I do have one. Let me check. No, I don't.
Well, the other thing I want to ask you is, you deal with a lot of you do a lot of good, but you also deal with a lot of things that are unfortunate or the downtrodden or whatever you want to call it. How do you stay motivated? I've known you for a long time, and every time I see you, you're pumped up about United Way or Run for the Fallen or other events that you do in the community. How does Carolyn Cloyd stay motivated?
I do have to say it is kind of depressing sometimes. Just you think you've helped somebody, and then somebody else comes in with just a sad, terrible story. But what motivates me, I guess, is just the fact this is a remarkable community. It really is. I really do not feel there's any time if I just said I don't have any resource for this, but these people need this. I have no doubt in my mind that somebody in this community or a group of people in this community would come up and help. And the people that work in our partner agencies and they're remarkable, and that is what keeps me pumped, because at the end of the day, these are all just people that you're helping, and how can that not be motivating?
Good answer. Officers, how do you decide who the officers and directors are of the United Way of Coles County? I mean, is that election or?
We do elect. We generally, of course, we try to get advice from other organizations. Do you have anybody you'd recommend? But most of the people that we get are generally people who have volunteered. They've shown some interest. They've come to us and said, hey, what are you guys doing? They're donors. And I'm not saying that like they have to be donors, although we'd love them to be donors. But, I'm just saying if they've said, sometimes it's just that they've come and said, hey, can I help out with your event? And we know that they're interested in helping not just us, but the community. So.
Okay. Anything that we forgot that you want to touch on before we go a couple last minutes here?
No, I just would like to, again, say this is such a generous community, and this is how we do what we do. If it was not for the community, the businesses, the people, helping United Way is helping the community, and we are really appreciative.
The website or email, what the best way to get hold of you if they need to talk to you?
So we have a Facebook page and we have a website. It's just United Way of Coles County.
There you go. All right, rapid fire questions. I know your favorite part. But Daniel's going to play too, so we'll have a good time.
All right.
Your very first job was?
Rock Home Gardens. I was a waitress.
I was a food service worker at Six Flags.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, those are two good ones, yeah. Did you have a nickname as a child? This is my new favorite question, so.
No, but I have one now.
Okay,
I have friends call me Clementine. It's a long story, but it's from an old TV show I watched as a kid, and I used it as a username, so now people call me Clementine.
That's awesome. Well, here's the DJ,
yeah.
So it's easy. There you go. Favorite spicy food? Assuming you like something spicy.
Can you ask him first?
You have spicy food you like?
Hot chips.
Hot chips.
Any
Okay.
kind.
Okay. Anything hot?
Gosh, I can't think of it. Just
Like
I
hot
like
chili, wings or anything?
Italian food. I like spicy Italian food.
Okay, that's your answer then. Name the first street you lived on. Remember the first street you lived on growing up?
I remember the first one I remember was 2029 Radcliffe Avenue in Indianapolis.
Right. That's a
Laramie Avenue.
Laramie Avenue. All right. Your favorite country singer?
Oh gosh. I'm going to say Hank Williams Sr. just in memory of my father.
There you go.
I'll just say Carrie Underwood.
There you go. Do you give blood?
I do.
Never have.
Do you have a pet?
No, I don't. But can I say I have O-negative blood, so.
There you go.
I don't have a pet, no.
Pet, all right. We asked this off air. Your favorite board game? And this was we have to decide whether it's a board game or not, but it is.
Okay, I'm going to go with Operation just because I loved it when I was 5.
There you go.
I would count it as a board game.
All right.
Mine was
she's
Sorry.
a guest, so we have to agree with her. And yours is Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, mine was Scrabble. So, Carolyn, great to see you. We appreciate all the great work you do for the community as well.
Thank you.
That's what makes it go. So, thanks so much, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
All right.
DJ, another
Thank you.
showdown. You're getting closer to graduation.
I know.
We are WEIU.